Do Brits really see themselves as European? It's a curious question that often catches outsiders off guard. Britain is in Europe, so why do some Brits act like they're not part of it? The answer lies not just in geography, but in identity, how people see themselves, where they feel they belong, and what history has taught them. While maps are clear, feelings can be far more complicated. In today's video, we're exploring the reasons why some Brits feel culturally separate from Europe, and why that doesn't always mean they've turned their backs on it. Britain is geographically European, but that's just the start. Let's begin with what's undeniable. The United Kingdom is part of the European continent. It lies just off the northwestern coast of mainland Europe and is separated by only 21 miles from France at the narrowest point of the English Channel. From a geographical perspective, Britain is, and has always been, European. But geography alone doesn't define how people think of themselves. When it comes to identity, emotions, experience and history, often play a far bigger role than lines on a map. That's where the idea of British identity versus European identity begins to reveal its complexity. While some countries see their continental affiliation as central to who they are, Britain's location has historically served more as a buffer than a bridge. The Channel has been viewed by many as a protective moat, reinforcing the idea that Britain stands apart from its neighbours. Not better, not worse, just different. An island nation with an independent spirit. Being an island has shaped how Britain sees itself for centuries. Unlike most European countries, which share borders and histories of invasion and occupation, Britain has often operated on its own terms. This independence is deeply ingrained in the national psyche. The island mentality fostered a strong tradition of self-governance, naval strength, and cautious interaction with continental powers. From resisting Napoleonic rule to playing a decisive role in two world wars, Britain's story has often been told as one of standing alone. This narrative contributes to a sense of national pride and reinforces the image of Britain as distinct from its European neighbours. Even when Britain was part of the European Union, some Brits felt they were participating in a club they were never fully comfortable in. Opt-outs from key policies like the Euro and the Schengen area further emphasised that separation. The UK's preference for charting its own path is one reason why the question, "Are we truly European?" still lingers in public discourse. A broader global identity beyond the continent. Britain's identity has long been shaped by its global connections. As the heart of a once vast empire, the UK built relationships that spanned continents. For generations, British culture and influence reached far beyond Europe, into Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and Oceania. Today, this global legacy continues through strong ties to the Commonwealth, international trade, and migration. Some Brits may feel more culturally aligned with countries like Canada, Australia, or the United States than with their immediate European neighbours. Shared language, legal systems, and similar lifestyles reinforce these bonds. This sense of global belonging doesn't negate European ties, but it does help explain why some British people feel a stronger connection to the wider English-speaking world. This broad outlook, shaped by centuries of global engagement, contributes to a national identity that often places Europe as one of many important relationships, rather than the defining one. Language, the unseen cultural barrier. One of the most understated but powerful factors influencing cultural identity is language. In the UK, English dominates, and for many, it's the only language they speak fluently. While many Europeans grow up multilingual, most Brits do not, and that creates a subtle but significant divide. This language barrier can lead to a feeling of being separate from continental Europe. For example, when travelling across countries like Germany, France, or Italy, Brits often rely on others speaking English rather than integrating linguistically. This dynamic can reinforce a sense of us and them, even during something as universal as tourism. Furthermore, media, entertainment and education in the UK are largely English language focused. This can reduce exposure to European cultures unless one seeks them out intentionally. While not exclusive to Britain, this dynamic does influence how some people perceive their place in Europe, more as observers than participants. The power of history and public conversation. Britain's relationship with Europe has been debated for decades, not just in government, but in the media and everyday conversations. From the moment the UK joined the European Economic Community in 1973, the topic of Europe became politically sensitive and emotionally charged. Newspapers often ran stories highlighting bureaucratic rules from Brussels, and political leaders were frequently asked to defend Britain's place in the EU. This long-running debate framed Europe as something external, something that Britain was tied to by treaty rather than by identity. While these narratives weren't universally accepted, they did influence public perception over time. Some Brits began to associate Europe with complexity, control, or compromise. That doesn't mean they disliked European countries, but it shaped how they thought of being European. For some, it became an idea tied to regulation and distance, rather than culture and connection. This context helps explain why public opinions on Europe and the UK remain deeply nuanced, often reflecting experiences more than facts. A nation of diverse opinions. It would be a mistake to assume that all Brits think alike on this topic. The UK is a diverse country, geographically, socially, and culturally, and attitudes about Europe vary widely. In cosmopolitan areas like London, Bristol, and Edinburgh, being European is often embraced. These cities are home to large international communities, European students, and businesses with continental ties. Residents here may travel frequently, speak multiple languages, and work across borders, leading to a strong sense of European identity. On the other hand, some rural and post-industrial areas may feel less connected to Europe. People in these regions might have limited exposure to European culture or fewer opportunities to engage with it directly. For them, the idea of Europe may feel distant or abstract, not out of hostility, but simply out of habit and experience. This variety is key to understanding the UK's broader identity. It's not uniform, and that's okay. Some Brits feel deeply European, others do not, and both perspectives exist side by side. How younger generations are changing the conversation. Among younger Brits, there's a noticeable shift in how Europe is viewed, not just as a place to visit, but as something they're part of. This change has been shaped by education, travel, and cultural exposure. For years, programs like Erasmus allowed UK students to study in European universities. Budget airlines made weekend trips to Rome or Berlin commonplace. Social media connected British youth to their peers across the continent, from fashion trends to activism to entertainment. As a result, many young people in the UK feel more European than generations before them, not because of politics, but because of lived experience. They grew up with open borders, shared opportunities, and a sense of belonging that stretched beyond national lines. That said, not every young person feels this way. Location, access, and background still play a big role. But the overall trend suggests that British identity is evolving, especially among younger citizens who see Europe not as other, but as part of their cultural landscape. Britain and Europe, a relationship that endures. Despite political changes and shifting sentiments, Britain and Europe remain deeply connected. Economically, the two regions still trade extensively. Culturally, influences flow both ways, through music, film, fashion, and food. Socially, families and friendships continue to cross borders. In fact, millions of European nationals live in the UK, and many Brits live across Europe. These daily realities remind us that while political decisions may alter formal structures, people-to-people relationships endure. It's also worth noting that many British traditions have European roots, from royal intermarriages to Renaissance art, classical music, and culinary techniques. And Europe, in turn, has long embraced British literature, theatre, and innovation. So while some Brits may feel they're not fully European, that hasn't stopped the UK-Europe relationship from thriving in practice. Cultural, academic, and human ties continue, quietly but powerfully. So, do Brits really see themselves as European? Some do, others feel differently. The truth lies in a mix of culture, geography, and individual experience. What's clear is that British identity is rich, layered, and evolving, and that the UK's connection to Europe continues in ways far deeper than maps or politics alone. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.